Call the meeting to order. This is the May 1st, 2025 Wicomico County Council work session for the fiscal year 2026 budget. First on the agenda is the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff, good to see you.
Pam Olin, Finance Director.
Charles Schmeichel, Deputy Finance Director.
Mike Lewis, Sheriff, Wicomico County.
Major Todd Richardson, Sheriff's Office.
Deanna Mason, Specialist.
Good to have everybody here.
Good to be here, sir. Thank you.
How we want to do this?
So we're going to start with Charles. He's going to do some of the top highlights, and then Sheriff's Office, kind of like we've done with the other ones, is going to fill in where needed and any questions that we can't answer.
So there's not a lot of changes here with the Sheriff's Office. First off, with the salary, most of these sworn officers have a contract in place, so there's not a lot of choice on our part. As discussed, when the council passed their resolution on allowing us to sidestep 2020-09, we're giving a 5% package for the command staff and for the civilians to be distributed out as the department sees fit. As far as benefits, of course, follow along those lines. Under operating costs, a lot of the changes, there's an increase to software that has to be considered. The ESG lease was cut from their budget. Janitorial costs have gone up. Those are pretty much most of the operational changes, maybe an increase to ammunition. And then on capital expenses, or I guess the one time, there's a $99,000 and change ask for computer equipment that IT put forward. Is they're on that schedule. And there is a capital request for cert vests. Are there any questions about any of that?
Questions? We're good, Charles.
Ready for me, Mr. President?
Sir.
First of all, I want to say good afternoon and thank you once again for allowing us to come before you for our budget presentation outlining what we believe will be our priorities for this next year. And nothing really stands out other than the addition of 5 more sworn deputies within the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office to meet our basic expectations of the Maryland Circuit Courts. We have had deficiencies in our courts for years. We've been paying quite a bit of overtime and sending commanders down at their rates to work down in the courts just to meet the basic needs. But as you well know, we had a circuit court judge that was brutally shot and killed at his home less than 2 years ago on the Western Shore, which caused Annapolis to rethink a number of issues, including the number of deputies that should be present in our courtrooms at any given time. And we are in need of 5 additional deputies to fill the positions in our courthouse. Also, I think the other position that you're going to see that I have requested is a social media specialist position to really bring the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office up to where it needs to be, so we can do very timely notifications, not just on Facebook, not just via email, not just with our local media partners, but also on Snapchat, Instagram, and other forms of social media to get our message out there as quickly as possible to allay any concerns someone might have in the event of an active shooter, a school shooter, a road closure, something that affects every citizen traveling into or through or living in Wicomico County. So those are the 2 main things that you're going to see additions for the Sheriff's Office, the 5 new Sheriff's Office sworn deputy positions, and the 1 social media specialist. And I'll certainly open up for any questions you might have of me or Major Todd Richardson or Miss Deanna Mason.
A few years ago, we gave more money to the Board of Ed for more school resource officers. Has that been fulfilled? Are they fully staffed at all?
Those positions were filled. We have lost some people recently. We've lost 3 in a month that we weren't expecting to lose, but we were getting very close to being fully staffed, and then we lose 3 right back to back.
So was all the schools that they wanted resource officers in fulfilled at one time, or?
No, not. They would like to have one in every school, but we were trying to get 5 years at a time, or 5 deputies for 5 straight years, 5 additional for 5 years,
Right.
so that we didn't take that big hit all in 1 year.
Uh-huh.
Plus, we probably wouldn't be able to hire that many anyway,
Right.
or get them trained, and that's why we kept going with the groups of 5.
Okay.
With the new partnerships with the city and with the FBI's, is that included in here? Any expenses?
It is not included in there. Those will be positions that, I can tell you, there are existing positions within the sheriff's office. Those are additional duties and responsibilities that have been bestowed upon not only detectives, but those TFOs or task force officers that will be assigned to work with the FBI and the Salisbury Police Department as part of our joint community action team. Joe, I do want to touch back on the SRO positions you asked about. We are filling those positions, but we're pulling from the road. They're not additional deputies that have been hired. We are having to take people off the road. We're assigning people, quite frankly, in these schools who don't have the proper training to be in those schools. School resource deputies have to be trained and certified as trained school resource deputies with special training to meet the needs of the Wicomico County public school system. When we take somebody off the road, even though they're armed, even though they're there to serve and certainly going to respond to a crisis, they're not specially trained school resource deputies. So we do need those 5 positions for that reason.
I thought they were for the court. The extra 5 you were hiring were for the court.
These are for the courts, so we can send the other ones back to the schools.
Oh, okay.
We're constantly truly pulling from the road, from the schools, and putting them in different locations every single day to meet the needs of different divisions. But the Court Judicial Protection Division, that is something we have to take care of. Our Annapolis is going to make sure we do it. So, and we do have a duty and responsibility to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to see that, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, Sheriff, we were having trouble hiring deputies, right, and major, but it seems like now we're at full force, you say, right?
We were getting very close to being at full force. I think we had one more certified that was about to start. But since we started the ability for the school resource officers to work basically the school schedule, and we've been able to hire quite a few certifieds that didn't want to come back and work midnight shifts and go to the roads. They wanted to come and take that specific school position, which allowed us also to take people that were in school positions who would rather be on the road but are being forced into that position.
And the latest 3 resignations that the Major mentioned a while ago, those were very unexpected separations from our agency, very unexpected.
With the, I was wondering with the grants that you're doing, because you always have a lot of grants that you guys are very aggressive about that, and we appreciate that as well. Are you finding where, with our new grant administrator that we have in the county, Ms. Carter, Lori Carter, that could help to offset your load, your workload, or is it not necessary? I'm just curious when I saw this.
We envision Lori as the person that's out there looking for grants for us to apply to make sure we don't miss a grant that comes along that we may be able to have the capability to apply to.
Gotcha.
And there is certainly a need to have Miss Lori Carter external. Everybody knows she's the best at what she does, but we have a pretty robust internal system with those grants, and they're doing a great job with that.
Yeah, you always have. I know you're always coming in with those benefits.
Cindy, the cannabis money flowing back into the sheriff's department for any programs that you all do, or?
I've not smelled any of it, Joe. I say that because I can tell you, we've not seen a dime. We've not seen a dime from a cannabis money.
It's not eligible. Yeah.
Law
It is-
enforcement, law enforcement isn't eligible for cannabis money.
You can't get any of
whatsoever,
it.
even if it's a program in the areas that,
I would tell you this, Joe. I flew out of BWI Saturday morning. All I could smell is weed in BWI. I go to Florida. I didn't smell weed the entire 5 days I was gone. I land at BWI. I walk out of the aircraft in the jetway. All I could smell is weed. That's Maryland for you. That's what we're known for now.
If you want cannabis money, you have to seize it, right? I'm good.
Yeah. You good?
Do you all receive any, for the deputies that you're trying to get for the court, are you going to receive any money from the courts at all to help pay for this?
This is what we often refer to as a unfunded mandate of the state.
Okay.
100%.
That's exactly what that is.
Okay, all right.
And I got to say, we have an incredible judiciary here in Wicomico County, very great to work with, very easy to work with, very understanding, but very patient at this time. They've been very patient, and they know that we have put this request in, and it's badly needed. We have no choice. It's badly needed.
With the population that we have, is there a formula that says you should have so many deputies for X number of thousands of people? I see a lot of housing popping up all over the county. So, 1,000 units going up down off Snow Hill Road. So are those potential 1,000 people going to create 4.7 more calls for service for you? Is there any type of data that shows with an increase in population, it's going to increase your workload as well?
I'm sure there's data out there, but I'm not seeing any specific formula unique to our particular jurisdiction.
Okay.
It's kind of funny, if you know anything, I don't like the leasing program we have in Wicomico County. I've always said buy instead of lease, because we had a really good program where we were keeping cars. We were keeping cars way too long. I know that at the Civic Center, they had cars, probably when you were there, Patton, for 10 years.
Closer to 20.
Yeah, so, and I thought, well, that's not good. And it was even worse for you guys, because how you have to run those vehicles, you can't take those risks. So out of anything with leasing, I advocated it advocated it a lot for the Sheriff's Department. Wasn't so interested as how we may do it with, just regular government offices. But it's pervasive throughout the entire county now. I don't know how much it will or will not be adjusted, but what I'm getting to in the long run here is part of the reason they advocated for it was because they were saying, well, you're going to reduce your maintenance costs because this and that. But I've noticed that the maintenance costs are running around $200,000, and you don't have to answer this now because this is something that could be done later. But I noticed that the maintenance costs are still around $200,000 a year, and kind of from what they were pitching, I would have thought that it would have been cut astronomically from that.
A big part of the dramatic increase in our expenses for repairs is the cost of the repairs. A front-end brake job now on a Chevy Tahoe is over $1,400. Over,
Really?
yeah, just for front brakes, it's $1,400. We've had 3 or 4 engine failures. 4.
Yeah, the transmission.
Chris, if you want to grab that mic there, you could sit at the table if you'd like, but if you want, let us know who you are just through
Chris Taylor, Wicomico Sheriff's Office, charge of the fleet. So a transmission was $6,000, now it's $8,500. We just did an engine-end transmission, and it was $30,000, but Chevy put in, we ended up only paying a little over $10,000. I mean, it's the cost. I mean, as far as the maintenance is going down as how much we've been doing,
Right.
but the cost has gone up.
Okay, thank you. That does answer that.
It has worked extremely well for our office, and I will tell you, I have actually referred other law enforcement entities to both Major Richardson and Sergeant Chris Taylor. Most recently, we had a sheriff from West Virginia that was in our facility 3 weeks ago, and that was his number one reason for stopping by. He wanted to talk about the leasing program we had to see how successful it worked for us.
Yeah, honestly, and I've said before, it was sort of a godsend for the Sheriff's Department because you were in a situation where you needed to replace 10 a year, and it was almost unfathomable to be able to do that in the long run because it was an endless cycle back and forth. So
I remember so many phone calls where they said, do you want deputies or cars? No, because we weren't getting both. We had to pick which one we wanted.
how's the resale value when you have to build them out?
It's not great,
Yeah,
but
okay, all right, just curious, actually.
And you guys have always been very supportive of my office, I can tell you that. I couldn't ask more. You've been very supportive of our office. And I truly appreciate supporting that leasing program because I don't have to tell you safety's everything when these deputies responding to and from calls. It truly is. You can't put a price tag on that. And still, every single year, we have more police officers killed in automobile-related crashes and incidents than we have shot and killed. So the safety and maintenance of these vehicles is paramount to the success of our agency.
It just appears to me that, I know we've gone through some serious inflation, but the auto repair world has gone nuts. I approve every bill for every repair on every car, and I look at what your car it was, and if it was my car, would I be spending this much money on it? That's how we live.
I got you. Question? Pam?
I don't have anything else.
All right, Shani?
Congratulations on your office. Has the morale improved? This isn't budget related. Has the morale improved since you moved in?
Dramatically. And we do believe that the construction of this new public safety complex is going to be a huge recruitment tool, but we've already seen that it's a retention tool. People that we knew were absolutely looking to leave, looking to retire, or sticking around. I've even had a lot of guys say, man, this is like coming to a brand-new job. We love this.
And you had the classes there not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago.
We did.
It's nice to be able to bring, deputies from not just from the state of Maryland, they were coming from everywhere.
They came from Iowa, Montana, Mississippi, New Jersey, and Virginia.
Right, and we're hosting them in Wicomico County
Yes,
and the state-of-the-art.
They all were staying in hotels.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yes.
Yeah.
But the other part of it is also, we don't have the expense of travel and accommodations, sending our people to those trainings to Iowa or wherever. If we host them, then we get 5 or 6 free slots.
I got you.
We don't have any of the other expenses other than them being in the building.
Do you get any people interested in those trainings to want to stay in Wicomico?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to laugh on the budget when I came down, I saw the janitorial. And I said, well, the janitorial, of course, it's bigger. And then I saw the electric, and then I saw natural gas.
And some of that is that we've been occupying two buildings for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, we took
Yeah.
over the power bill when we got our certificate of occupancy back in October.
Yeah.
And obviously, both bills have put up. And we still don't have a real good sense of what it's going to be on a monthly basis until we're up and running for a couple more months.
Yeah.
They used a lot of power in testing and all that too, so part of that was just getting those systems up to standard.
There's hope that in total, the number will go down, at least for in the short term, because there won't be as much usage then at the other facility until we figure out what we're doing with the other facility. We will obviously have to maintain electric and heat and that kind of thing to keep the building going, but it won't be an occupied building quite the same way in the short term. So hopefully, we will see a little bit of savings, but we had to budget for it as we're currently running.
I get it. Any questions? Anything you want to add?
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate y'all being here.
Good seeing you, Miss Shaney.
Good seeing you. I'll call you, make my appointment. How much you built it? I'm gonna do it.
Nice.
I'm gonna do it next week.
Beautiful building.
Next, we have the Salisbury Fire ambulance.
Next to you.
Yep.
Hey. All right.
You want me to go get you something?
You guys need a water or anything? You good?
I'm gonna steal this one.
Got some edibles in the back room. You want some?
Yeah, that's fine.
Laura keeps them in her top desk drawer.
I cannot keep him under control.
It's a long day.
How's everybody?
Good. These two introductions.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Andy Kitzrow, City Administrator, City of Salisbury.
Randy Taylor, City Salisbury Mayor.
Rob Frampton, Salisbury Fire Chief.
So what the executive placed in this budget, and then I will, is basically 3 times the amounts provided to fire and EMS for the the volunteers for their main 3 grants that we do for them. In addition, as we discussed in passing, it is on it is the, I have to find it, give me 1 second. It is the very last page after the capital budget. I gave a general fund balance estimate in there. We were recommending for fiscal '25 to pay the $1 million out of fund balance that is requested in the contract. So we were requesting to do that in fiscal '25 out of fund balance, and have that be handled in '25. In our brief discussions, we talked about putting that in '26. But that information came to me after this budget was already presented. So the $1 million that they had requested is in here. The first $1 million is in the concept because we were already we were going to request it as a budget amendment for fiscal '25. And that's what is in this budget.
So where is the second $1 million commitment?
So that's where we felt there was some discussion that needed to be had about that second $1 million. Because again, council sat and negotiated a contract. Administration didn't get that until after council sat. So
We never really negotiated a contract, we just had discussions.
So again, that was presented. We felt there was some opportunity for discussion about the second $1 million. And as such, administration did not put the second $1 million in. We put $1 million in '25, not in '26.
What may be easier to do, and what might be easier to do, is to, as I was telling Chief Frampton yesterday, we did not want to go through the process of doing another transfer in fiscal year '25 because we've done so many, starting with January 1st of 2024, but I think it may be better to put something together. It would have to come from a request from the executive office to go ahead with the $1 million as a transfer now, so we don't have to worry about trying to add it in '26 and then cutting $1 million from somewhere else. So I think it'd probably be better if we did the $1 million now as a
budget amendment for fiscal '25.
Yes.
And that's, again, how we had it presented. Again, it would come out of fund balance either way.
Right.
But I will gladly get to council a request for the $1 million in fiscal '25.
Okay.
And
now we already have the second $1 million in here for '26. It's under a very unusual category, never reconsideration or something?
the second $1 million is not in the '26.
Well, there is $1 million in here. Hang on a second. It's a really strange, it's on, I have on the PDF is what I have, but it says recommendation.
Yeah, that's the $1 million for the $1 million for '25.
Why don't we just consider, because it doesn't say whether it's 25 or 20, why don't we just consider that for '26?
So,
but I didn't see it anywhere else in the budget, so I don't know how it was a budget item. I was confused.
So again, I was trying to present to council that administration was willing to pay $1 million.
Right.
And it says, it's under the heading of resolutions affecting unassigned fund balance for 2025.
Right.
So we were recommending $1 million in '25 to help satisfy and potentially be part of the contract, that we would pay that in '25. In '26, we would give them the 3 shares of what we are paying to and again, to the volunteer stations. So that is what has been presented in this budget, is a $1 million payment and 3 shares.
Well, the $1 million payment is for this year, it's not for fiscal year.
But it's the same concept. It is part of again, we felt that it was all part of the evaluating the fund balance in total of the county.
So we're still going to need to amend the budget to allow for the second $1 million in fiscal year.
If we decide that that is the appropriate thing to do.
If the council decides that and the
Executive agrees, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Just trying to get that one out of the way.
What's the discussion on the second $1 million? I understand it's tied to potential fees associated with the planning commission, is that right?
That is the discussion that we feel needs to happen prior to making the decision on the second $1 million. And that's about all my knowledge is that information right there. So that is what I can relay at this moment.
You know, and I think everybody agrees that's separate. It needs to be decoupled one from the other.
Yeah.
And we'll worry about that plans. And I mean, I haven't seen, we don't have an MOU, we don't have a contract, we don't have invoices, we have nothing. So I think what we'll do is I think the additional $1 million needs to stand on its own, and we will have to see how to incorporate that in the fiscal year 26 budget, right? Andy, yeah.
Councilman, if I may, I just wanted to, we're talking about $1 million. We think it's $2 million extra. I don't want to just keep jumping millions. What was paid for this fiscal year by the county to us with the budget amendment of the $400,000 was $2 million for services rendered in calendar year 23. So there is what we're calling the catch-up payment, the $1 million for FY25 that's been referenced, the potential additional $1 million. That would be $2 million for calendar year 24 calls. But where we're in this limbo part is still services that are happening today, January through June, because we are working on a budget for calls, I believe, starting July 1, not January 1. So we still have this half year of services right now. So that's how we got to 3, not 2. So it's calendar year of a 2 plus another $1 million. Yeah, so it's kind of, yeah. So we're still thinking there's 3.
It's like $1 million
every 6. Correct. So there is this extra $1 million. So if you're thinking about a one-time or figuring out that, there is still the services from January to June that would still need to be rectified at some point. But that was the initial request in our initial conversation. But I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Yeah, I just want to say, I know for everybody sitting here, I can tell you from my own experience, this is a very frustrating agreement. It's been a frustration for a number of years for a host of reasons, some of which for the people not sitting here. But at the end of the day, all we're really trying to do is recover our costs, which is why we sat down with everybody, with Joe and John, and try to get a deal that they understood where we were coming from. We're not trying to make money here. We're not trying to create a margin to support our operations. We're just trying to recover our costs. And of course, we're in an increasingly expensive environment right now for a host of reasons. So our tensile strength on this subject is tight because, we can't afford, $600,000 or $700,000, $800,000 million swing in reimbursement arbitrarily when we can justify it in this environment with an entity that's got budget 3.5 times the size of ours when we're doing your work. So I'm not saying we're just trying to get our cost. It's not a difficult concept. That's why, listen, let's get away from these specialty services, get away from this, P&Z credit. Let's just go, hey, these are on a percentage basis, on a percentage calls, for just the 3 districts is a $4.2 million conversation. That doesn't even include the people in the county that live in the city that we're not even charging you for. I mean, we can make a case it's $6 million. I mean, I'm just saying. So that said, I said, listen, let's just pull the debate out of it and create a baseline that makes economic, financial, mathematical sense with an escalator, so we don't have to come back here and have this tit for tat and you owe me for this and that. Let's get simple, keep it simple, and we'll live with that risk of a 6% escalator. That's what I was trying to do. And I don't want it to seem aggressive. And if you guys decide you want to do something different, we will be as gracious as we can to help you guys so public safety is not, we're not going to do this thing, we're done by next Friday. None of that. I'm just saying, you guys need to make a business decision that we're your partners in these 3 districts. This is what our costs are. Please pay us. Or allow us to help you go set your own shop up. And that's kind of the end of it for me. Okay?
I think, Mayor, we understand your concerns on that, and that's why we are really trying to see what we can establish in the county. We've been talking about, that's why we did the SWOT analysis. That's why we've been looking at whether or not, discussions from yesterday, whether we're going to do chase units in the county, whether we're going to build any type of EMS structures within the county. And, a lot of that, as I said yesterday when the chief was here, we would love nothing more than to be self-sustaining in the county. And I think that's the original goal. I mean, all municipalities cross boundaries. They just do. That's part of it. You're always going to be coming into the county at one point in time or another, and Hebron or Parsonsburg or whomever are going to be coming into Salisbury or Fruitland. That's just That's just how it works.
Got it, yeah.
So I think what we really need, from my perspective, I think what we really need is something really substantive that we can recognize. You know, the chief's been very kind in getting us the data that he has in reference to the calls per service, as well as the cost of readiness. And we appreciate that. But I think from the county's perspective, we need to be able to get a grip on what we feel our numbers are. I've felt like in the last 2 years that we really haven't, I just feel like the county's short on trying to state their case, and we've been taking all the numbers from what the chief has given us over this last year especially.
When you say county numbers, what do you mean? Your volunteer?
Well, excuse me?
What do you
Yeah,
mean
the
by-
volunteers as far as.
What they're called?
Yeah, yes, because if you talk to some volunteers in the county, they say, well, you know, those numbers really aren't, I think those numbers aren't quite as excessive as is being portrayed. I think that the counties going into the city, there's a lot more reimbursable runs that are being made that others, we're not counting outside of, and I'm not talking about mutual aid, we're not sort of saying, hey, we've been into the city, you know, 300 times in the last year. We're not doing that. And in a sense, if that were happening, should that not offset some of the costs that you were charging us every time you go? And you're going to say, well, we made 3,000 trips, but we're not telling you, yeah, but we made 300. I don't see where we've done any of that.
Yeah, I mean, I have it. It's probably on my computer. If you give me a few minutes, I can
believe
pull it up. But you know, I can tell you that our numbers that we get are from the dispatches that the Wicomico 911 Center dispatches us on. So, and then we input the information into our records management system. So, our numbers don't lie. You know, I don't know what their numbers are. I haven't seen their numbers, the county volunteer fire department's numbers at all.
Right.
Other than what I get from the 911 center, but I can tell you that, you know, we go outside more than they come in, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not significant to change any sort of funding structure one way or the other. I think as was stated yesterday, you know, and you alluded to it earlier, is that the mutual aid goes both ways. And I don't know that you can assign a dollar amount to that makes a big difference, really, that well, Hebron came in this much, or Parsonsburg came in this much, or we went there. At the end of the day, it's almost a wash as far as that goes. We're just simply looking for funding for our own fire district for what we do, you know.
Well, what's been presented to us today, you know, for fiscal year 26, I think for the most part, the council's been in agreement with what's been presented, and that would include the million for a transfer this year, and you know, within the next couple of weeks, next month, and the 2.025, is that what it is? And then there's the additional million to try to get caught up, 2205.
I think that's really kind of an important point. I mean, I think the two catch-up payments really was leading us to the 3-year forward-looking agreement, which we never got to. And I know that we were negotiating with you guys or talking with you guys, and we never really, I was kind of feeling like, you know, the administration would be in agreement with the council wherever they landed on this topic. We just never got that far. And that's why I'm just saying, listen, guys, on our side, we're experiencing some additional costs. We're just going to have to draw a line here and just say, hey, we're going to need to get reimbursed and have it be an escalator in this way, and that's kind of our offer at this point.
And I don't remember how we had any discussions in reference to, you know, fiscal year 27. I can't remember. I know that we were still behind on the $1 million payments, and those were going to have to be taken into consideration as well.
Yeah, it's what Andy referred
alluding
to
to.
earlier about the $3 million. The initial agreement was a 3-year agreement with the $1 million catch-up for each year of that agreement. In the work session that the mayor and I were at with you, you had a desire to move that to a 2-year, which would then have ramped that up to $1.5 million a year. Either way, it's $3 million, like Andy said, at the end of the year, that the city feels it's due, and that's based on our 2023 FY. It would have been FY 24 and 25 amounts that we received from the county.
I think, again, I think we have everything, I believe we have everything put to bed for the most part on what we can do. Got your letter today?
Yeah.
read about half of it. I was
No, sir.
on my way over.
Got it.
And so obviously
Apologize
there's
for-
going to need more work to be done. I'd say you'd want to try to get work done with the executive branch and try to see what kind of a deal, a compromise you can come up with there, and then revisit it that way. And don't know whether or not there will be any required transfers in the future here in the next 12 months or not. We'll have to see.
Council President, if I may, since we have everybody's attention and multi-year agreements have to be approved by the county council, there is, the actual fiscal year 26 budget that I think in the terms of the original agreement has essentially been, minus a couple things, agreed to by the executive's budget. The catch-up payment is something that we can talk about. We are still interested in a multi-year agreement that also takes into consideration escalation and rising costs. So that is something as we go forward, we will still want to talk about instead of doing this every year to try to lock us in, because we are also doing forward funding projections. We now have unions to think about and CIPs. We're trying to figure out where we're going to be kind of on a trajectory. So we would appreciate, as we talk about this in the future, that we can try to figure out like more than a 1 year. And I get the reason for not doing 3 years, but if we could at least lock in a couple years as we go through our agreement, that would be great.
I couldn't agree more. Anything else? Pam, you have anything else? No? Anybody? Mayor, thank you very much for being here, Chief. Andy?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, we're reconvening as the Wicomico County Council in a open work session for the fiscal year 2026 budget for May 1st, 2025. Next on the agenda, we have the Board of Education. Glad to have everybody here.
Pam Oland, again, still.
Brian Rager, Chief Finance and Operations Officer.
Micah Stoffer, Superintendent, Wicomico County Public Schools.
Jesse Reed, Controller.
So,
I have to have an AI on your end so that the AI just does it.
yeah. So basically 3 points associated with the budget for the Board of Education. We fully funded their ask of 55,807 and change, which is MOE plus a 2% inflator. In addition, the state has pushed down the retirement supplement, and so we needed a spot to put that. We had to put that in our budget. So there is a line that says teacher retirement supplement payment. That is what that $1.7 million is. It's not going to the Board of Education. That will be going to the state for the benefit of the teachers and the employees at the Board of Education, but it will not be going to the Board of Education, and it will not be calculated in their number for MOE going forward. And then the third piece is since the submission of the CIP, there has been further discussions with the state and with the Board of Education as to how much funding is available for Fruitland Primary. And Liesl Ashby, who is not here today, but did a very good job of keeping us informed as to how much was needed on a cash flow basis associated with Fruitland Primary so that they can sign their contracts and they can move forward. And based on that cash flow model, there is no need for funding in fiscal 26 from the county to keep the Board of Education on track for Fruitland Primary. The CIP, we did reflect that a lot of times we have not historically shown the state share in our capital budget, but we felt due to the nature of this, all of the discussion that we've had on Fruitland, we felt it was advantageous to us to show that on here that yes, the funding from the county is not happening in 26, but there is $12 million, sorry, it's so tiny I have to read under my glasses, $12 million from the state to keep them on track. The estimates for next year are reduced from the total amount that we thought, but there's still estimates next year for the county share having to be funded next year and forward funding. The forward funding may have to be available as early as July of next year to keep their cash flow going. So we may have to be doing some pay-go funding for a short period of time and then look at other avenues of funding the forward funding aspect. So I wanted to give you those 3 points, and then I will turn it to you guys and or the board for any questions.
Okay. Superintendent?
No, thank you for the time. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Also like to say that our board chair, Jean Malone, is in the audience with us this afternoon. We are really looking forward to next year. And as you know, we are planners, and we try to communicate that not only to the board and council, but also our community as well. I think it's no secret that the challenges that we are facing really have come from a large increase in enrollment that we've seen over the course of the last couple of years, this past year especially, and also just the change in our demographic, our student groups. As we move forward, we have seen a large influx of multilingual learners or English language learners, special education needs, and that's really presenting itself within our in-town schools, especially, and really in the younger grade levels. So when we look forward to next year, you'll see that many of the things that we are requesting really are looking at those elementary schools in town here in Salisbury and the impacts that we're seeing, as well as some of the other things that we're seeing related to school climate and safety and other areas around the entire school system. So Dr. Reger is going to take us through just the budget process and what we looked at, as well as kind of just talk about our requests as we move forward as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Pam stated, our request for this year represents the state mandated maintenance of effort, and then two additions, the CPI, cover inflation, and that additional 2% investment. And I want to talk a little bit about both of those, give you an idea where we plan to spend some of those. So the CPI adjustment addresses much of what you see on our cost of doing business page in our proposed budget. This includes some really large items like health insurance and electricity. I think everyone's felt the pinch in their electric bill in the recent months, both of those going up in excess of $1 million, as well as just the daily use, the things that we need to run a school, everyday textbooks, technology, even things like cleaning supplies, fuel for the buses, all those going up. So we figured CPI at about 3%. And we're really excited about that 2% investment because we think it's going to allow us to do some things that are really going to move the needle for us in Wicomico County Public Schools and do some things that we see in other high-performing districts around the state and around the country, things that we want to be able to provide for our community as well. One thing we hear a lot about is class sizes, particularly in our elementary schools. You know, we've done a boundary adjustment to begin addressing that, but that takes some human resources as well. So we have 7 elementary teachers in the budget to help bring those average class sizes down. If you can imagine a room of 35 or 6-year-olds, that's a pretty tall task to ask of a teacher. So we really want to be able to do some work there. School security and safety is always the forefront of everything we do, and we've done some things thanks to you with some one-time funding in the past. We're looking to do some additional things that would require more ongoing funding, which is why we put it in this 2%. One of those being AI weapons detection at all of our school entrances. That would give us that additional measure of safety and support, and just that peace of mind of knowing that's there. That's a new technology. It's been pretty well documented on a number of newscasts in recent months, and it's documented to really work. Additional levels of support in our alternative education programming. Really, again, as Dr. Stauffer said, focusing on some of those elementary grades to better meet the needs of those students who really need that additional support, while also improving the climate and safety in all of our classrooms. We want some funding to support additional special area teachers. We know that not every student who comes to school really in love and enthused about the core areas, but we know the arts, and the fine arts and music and physical education, those what we call the special areas, are really what gets a lot of students excited about school. So we want to provide some more options, opportunities there. Another place we've seen some success recently, you may have heard about the middle school intramurals that we started last year, continued this year, and this year we put a little bit of funding into elementary to begin giving elementary schools a chance to provide some of those same kinds of opportunities. And we want to increase the funding there because we're seeing success. We're seeing students get excited about coming to school and motivated to keep their grades up so that they can participate in these things.
Yeah, my favorite day, everybody's favorite day in school is field day.
Yeah.
Do they even have that anymore?
We do have field day, and
Yes, sir.
and with the intramurals, we've really bumped that up to another
Yeah.
level because we're in middle school now, and the students need to be good citizens in the school in order to participate. And they want these flag football, soccer, track and field, volleyball, really capturing kids.
I think Dr. Stoffer had mentioned that just with the enhancement of your sports program.
That's right. The only way they can be eligible is if they have the grades, attendance, and behavior to be able to participate, and that's really been a motivator for a number of our students in those grade levels now.
And,
Sorry, go ahead.
well, no, it's fine. Well, the last thing I wanted to mention that we're also really excited about is expansions of our Career and Technology Center. We know that not every student has a desire and the willingness, desire to go to higher education directly after high school. A lot of students want to go straight into the world of work. Our award-winning CTE Center is really a gem in the county. We have students that can go there, get the training and the skills they need to go into high-demand jobs, well-paying jobs directly after high school. We want to expand that. We have students that we have to get turned away from programs that they want to go into, and we're probably not going to be able to eliminate that in 1 year, but at least provide some additional opportunities during the day, as well as twilight CTE. We'll be able to capture some additional students who maybe can't do it during the daytime.
I agree with you. I think CTE and pre-K are the two most important newer initiatives we want to stay ahead of the curve on. Not at any expense, but seriously, I think CTE is so important.
Yeah.
So with CTE, we are looking next year to add a new instructor for our certified nursing assistant program, which is a program that we are continually, unfortunately, having to turn students away because the state requires that there be one instructor for every 8 students because of the clinicals and things that are associated with that. Tidal Health is wonderful, and they work very closely with us. Also very excited about our Twilight CTE. We've are beginning 3 certification programs with our evening high school and/or students that just want to come after school and participate that and get that certification either in cybersecurity and networking, the ServSafe for food managers, and the third one, trying to remember what I'll have that for you in just a minute, but a third certification program, nail technician for those students are 3 areas that have been something that when we're listening to our program advisory committees, those community members that advise our CTE programs, those are areas that we're hearing from them. So we're excited about that opportunity to be able to do that. I also want to highlight something that Dr. Egger said, which is an alternative education, our behavior support program for grades 2 through 5. We need it. We've had our Choices behavior support program for many, many, many years now for ages grades 6 through 12. This year, a couple years ago, we started our behavior support program for our pre-K and kindergarten and first grade students, and we'd really like to see that continuum where we're able to really individualized instruction for students that are going through cycles of behavior or whatever it may be at very young ages, put them in a program where they can have individualized attention and much smaller class sizes and support from our mental health professionals to be able to then transition back to the school. As you know, at Prince Street or Beaver Run or some of our other really large in-town elementary schools, those types of opportunities just don't exist when you have class sizes of 27, 28, 29. So we're excited about that program, and we think that'll be a strong layer of intervention for our students. any questions.
How's the SRO status?
So we have 2 additional SROs, and then we did go to a campus security manager program where we have 4 campus security managers, 1 at each of our high schools that are also working with some of our campus patrol staff in middle and elementary schools as well.
That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, we're up to 12 SROs now.
Good, good.
Nobody mentioned that your administrative costs are only 2.6% of the budget. Right.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're proud of that.
Yeah. So, 'cause everybody always.
And I always say, we are proud of it. We think that's a good thing, but it's also important to have, strong leadership and strong support as well. So, you have to have a certain level, for sure. Yeah.
And we have I'm sensing we have a lot of work to do with the CIP in reference to supportive education, as how we're going to amend it, if I'm not mistaken, because the state of Maryland has created such a flux where we have, it changes for a while there, it changed every 3 months. There were different numbers coming in.
So, I mean, the CIP that was presented had 3 line items in it, which was bond, forward funding, and state funding. All you would have to do is eliminate the the forward funding and then increase the state funding. So it's literally just a matter of adjusting 3 numbers. 2 would go to 0 and 1 would get increased.
Okay. And is it but is the state's doing 12 million now? Is that right?
Yes.
And is that all we have to worry about now?
For 2026, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard. Okay, all right. Just want to make sure.
Out here numbers remain the same.
No, but again, we're right now working on the capital budget. My understanding, again, this is where you and I differ.
Just this?
On this issue, you and I differ. I believe the CIP is a planning document and should have been adopted as one plan, and thus then we attempt to make that plan be what we put in the capital budget. But plans change. So we are adopting the appropriation in the capital budget line items that I have provided to you in the back of the capital budget. And as such, the out years on the plan don't need to be updated because those out years are not appropriating anything.
Hey, it's all a crystal ball anyway.
So if
Right now.
council feels that the CIP for the very beginning of the fiscal year needs to match in 2026, the 2026 column, then we would adjust the CIP in your adoption to match the numbers that are placed in here, if that's as council desires them to be. Because nothing was adopted, it was not even introduced, it was just presented to you. You didn't make any kind of resolution or anything for it. It would literally be, we would give you an adjusted couple front pages.
However you can help.
Okay.
Any other questions?
The maintenance of effort. Are you satisfied with that?
So what our budget request is, and this is something that, as long as I'm in this position as superintendent and really working with our team and working with our community members, and I know that you were very patient as we presented a number of different numbers last year regarding historical amounts that the Board of Ed has been funded over the last 15 years and during that time. What we are going to try to do from this point forward is really look at maintenance of effort plus whatever CPI is from the previous year. Because if, as things go up, I'll be flat out honest, as things have gone up over the years, the way that we've adjusted is, since 80% of our budget are staff, the way that we've adjusted is we've simply just increased class sizes over time. We've not hired as many teachers to maintain the class sizes over time. So That's why I think on top of our enrollment, you're seeing some of the issues that we're seeing with class sizes, because in a school system, that's honestly just the quickest way to be able to adjust to that and do it so quickly. 100 teachers, 120 teachers retire every year. That's pretty much the standard if you go back and look at our numbers for many, many years. And instead of hiring 120 teachers to replace those 120 teachers, we hire 108 or whatever it may be. And over time, that just adds up and class sizes increase. So that's how the CPI, that's why that CPI is factored in, because that'll allow us to be able to still maintain all of the pricing for, insurance and electricity and fuel and all of those different things. And then the 2% investment is to help us now at this point continue to move forward and work on getting our class sizes back to really where they should be, and especially in elementary schools and especially in those early grade levels. And then also be able to add our alternative education program choices has been essentially the same as long as, at least as I've been here in this county for 28 years. So, with our changes that we've seen in poverty, multilingual learners, special education, we really need some other, and this isn't new. These are things that when we look at other areas of the state, see where things have been successful, we need some other alternative intervention programs for behavior and to meet the needs that we're seeing in our school system. So those are the kinds of things where that 2% investment over time will help us scale in the things that we see are needed regarding class size and just behavior support programs for our students.
To give you some information, Shaney, the $55 million includes all three of those pieces that he's talking about. The MOE number is approximately $53 million, and the difference between the 53 and the 55 is the additional CPI and the 2% inflator. So MOE is 53 million, and Jesse can probably quote it. I can't quote the number. I just know it starts with a 53 and then has, 6 additional digits after that. So that's the number, that's the MOE portion of that, and then the difference between the 53 and the 55 is those two other items that they're asking for.
You had a question?
Yeah. Anjali Chatel, Internal Auditor. In light of the current president and some executive orders that have come out, such as phrases about diversity, equity, inclusion, and this may not be applicable to the county, so maybe the council president can decide if this question should be answered, because we just, I think, give you money rather than the county actually doing these efforts. But for instance, on page 143 of your proposed budget for the year, there was a revenue, I think, that was coming from the state before, and it was called before IDEA Part B Access Equity Program, and the state was formerly giving you $134,550, and they stopped it this year, right? So these are example areas where funding maybe isn't coming in for these DEI programs, but then you talked about the multi-language learners, ELA, some things that, I'm not an expert in what could be classified as these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. I don't know if you want to speak to that, or...
It's a special education
Yeah.
funding that got cut, not necessarily related to DEI.
Okay.
But it is federal funding, I believe, that has been cut.
So it was federal funding through the state that then got cut to the county.
IDEA
Okay.
is the federal special education funding.
Okay, because it had the word equity, so then I was, thinking that maybe there should be some discussion about that DEI topic.
It's a good topic, because I think typically, as maybe a local body, governing body, you probably think with special education, it's covered under federal law. It's also, mandated, obviously, and regulated through the state. Currently, and Jesse, you get my numbers right, but we're somewhere around receiving funding of around $11 or $12 million a year for special education funding from both of the federal government and state government combined, but we're spending over 20. So that kind of gives you an idea of, you know, the types of needs that our students have and the types of things that we're having to do that really is not being provided even though it's mandated.
So is it somewhat arbitrary funding, or is it based on the enrollment of those students, the number of enrollment?
It's based on enrollment, but it's underfunded throughout the entire state. Every county is having the same problem.
Okay. All right, well, we appreciate you taking the time to be here. Thank you very much. Good seeing everybody.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
See you.
Have 10 more.
Yep. Have a good day.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda, we have Recreation, Parks, and Tourism at the Civic Center.
So I figure we go through them in order. We've got Steve Miller and his crew here with you, for you.
Yeah, grab another chair and then just share one of the microphones. Make sure you have a mic when you're talking so everybody can hear you. We'll go left to right and we'll skip Ms. Dolan just for introductions. Thank you.
So you need to introduce yourself. His left? Okay. Katie Rouse, Deputy Director, Recreation Parks Tourism, Civic Center.
Chuck Russo, Deputy Director, Recreation Parks and Civic Center.
James Simmons, Deputy Director.
And Steve Miller, Director of Recreation Parks and Tourism.
Appreciate you all taking time.
So I figured the cleanest way is to go by fund. So the first fund in order is Fund 60, which is Rec and Parks. In that fund, the actual total, if you go to the bottom line, a lot of their, some of their programs have shifted over time. They've had some programs drop. They've added some programs. They've gotten some funding for different programs. So their total budget that was adopted last year was $6.4 million. The growth in that is to $6.5 million. Most of that growth is in utility costs, because utilities are going up. So most of their fluctuation is in utility cost. Yes, there is a growth in the amount of appropriation that we are providing to them. That is primarily due to the growth in the salaries. Rec and Parks is a department that you would call the quality of life department, one of the quality of life departments for the county. And as such, you know, the parks workers themselves, they don't generate revenue for the county. They are, but they provide a benefit to county residents so that the parks are safe and the parks are cleaned up and the parks are mowed. So, again, most of the cost of the programs themselves, we attempt to run those programs at least a break even. So those programs themselves fund the part-time salaries and any equipment and rentals and all that stuff that we use for that. Really what the appropriation is covering is the salary and benefits for the full-time workers that we have to maintain our facilities and to overall manage the staff of that program. So that's the high level. In addition, we are looking at some capital projects for them. Most of the capital projects are either grant funded or enterprise funded for Rec and Parks. There's $1.5 million in the budget for general obligation bond to continue the process of renovating Mason-Dixon. And that was what was in the original CIP.
Question, the difference between the enterprise fund and a governmental fund?
Is an appropriation period.
Yeah.
So if we're appropriating money to them from the general fund, it is a governmental fund. So Civic Center, Rec and Parks receive an appropriation, tourism does not.
Yeah, and it seems like we do that, but, so it will stay that way? Because, with the airport, we finally, and it's, I don't know, the airport we transferred or in the process
Yes.
of making it as a department.
Yes.
Would we do that with Rec and Park and the Civic Center simply because of the fact that I just don't see how those numbers are ever going to level out where it's self-sustaining.
So again, that's why.
If that's it, or whether it's supposed to stay like this as a governmental.
So because of the complexity of their accounting structure for the number of programs they run,
Right.
for a financial aspect for me, it makes it a whole lot easier for finance for them to be their own separate fund.
Okay.
So that instead of them just being a department within the general fund, them being a fund upon themselves means that we can balance them out and keep track of their projects separately from the general fund. So it's a lot cleaner on the financial aspect for us to just give them one appropriation number to balance their budget than for me to try to have that be as part of the overall general fund. And they're treated the same way accounting-wise. They're both modified accrual basis accounting versus an enterprise fund is a full accrual basis. It's just for financial tracking purposes, it is a whole lot cleaner to have them as their own separate thing. I believe it was prior to my arrival, I believe Rec and Parks might have been part of the general fund and was spun off at one point in time because there actually is a Department 60 within the general fund. But again, for tracking purposes, it's a whole lot cleaner for them to be separate.
When in part of the budget, when you get to the munis part, it just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, and if I had that as part of, as part of the general fund,
Yeah.
it would just go on and on and on and on, and it would make it much harder for us to manage the entity.
There's a lot of accounts.
Yes, a lot, yeah. Who would like to, whoever wants to start, Steve, you want to?
No, not necessarily. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have. We're excited about all the different projects that we've got going, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are you raising fees on anything?
We are. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I can.
We submitted those to Laura already for a request for some fees.
We're on, we're in the
Yep.
meeting, so.
Yeah, so there is a number of small fee increases. If you look at the programs, there are a few reasons for that. One of the reasons is background checks. We're getting an upgrade and that. We've been grandfathered in at a very, very low price for a number of years with a company that does youth sports background checks. Those are increasing, and we get more live reporting if any situations occur. Referees are a national issue, and so for us to stay competitive and be able to offer these programs, we got to have referees and officials, and unfortunately, they're not always volunteers. And then supply costs are going up as well. The soccer ball that used to cost us $10 is now $15, and so you'll see some of those program fees increase to account for all those items. The Nanacoke Harbor addition of electric there, we're looking at small increases on the boat slips, and then on some of our pavilions, that's a number that stayed the same forever. But again, some of those utility costs increasing and staffing costs increasing to keep up with those rentals, we have done a small increase there as well.
As you know, we're in our internal auditor's doing a purchase card audit and gift card audit. In the December of '23, Rec and Parks paid over $4,100 for gift cards. Can you explain what they were for?
I can. So we do the Governor's Challenge every year, which is the basketball tournament. One of the things we've done since we've come back from COVID is we have agreements with teams that are national and sometimes international, including flying them in, so they can be part of the program. And these are some of the top top 10 high school basketball teams in the nation. So one of the things that we have to do for them is provide them meals. That's part of the agreement that they signed to come participate. So when they're in town, they're provided meals. So in order to do that, instead of having to facilitate basically going with them to a restaurant, paying with a purchase card, we work with generally the sponsors of the event. They'll give us some of the gift cards as part of their sponsorship, and then we purchase the rest. So we do have records of everybody that's gotten the cards from each of those teams, including their MOUs that say that we would provide meals for the team.
So Burnished Beer?
Yep.
So you give gift cards to Burnished Beer?
Yep, so
we're raising fees on citizens that want to play sports in Wicomico County, but you're giving $1,000 gift cards to Green Turtle?
That's covered by the revenue from the tournament.
Yeah.
So that's not from a taxpayer. That tournament covers itself and makes money for our budget. So it's actually adding into the budget. So that's what covers those costs, not the citizens or the taxpayers.
I'm hoping that we will do like the state does in Wicomico County and do away with gift cards, because they can be abused so badly.
They can be.
What happens if you buy $1,000 worth of gift cards, and what are the gift cards denomination, $25, $50?
It's a split of 25, 50, sometimes larger, like max would be 100,
Okay, so
depending on what they're willing to provide.
So if you go out and you buy $1,000 worth of gift cards, and say you have 15 or 20 people that you're handing these out to, and you have a couple gift cards left over, what happens to them?
There's no gift cards left over. We have an amount in their MOU of what we provide to them, and that matches what the gift cards are.
Right.
And we keep track of all of that. So, and that's the only time that we have bought them, and that timing times out for a governor's challenge. So if that's the direction the county goes, then we would pivot to be able to still provide those meals. We would figure out a different way, but
You could do it a different way, other than gift cards.
We could.
It would be again, we would most likely have to have an employee go with those teams to a location for their meal. So now we're paying overtime for an employee.
I get it.
So it is a trade-off on how
The state outlawed gift cards because they were abused so badly.
So again, there is a potential way to do it. It would potentially increase our costs, because now you have to have an employee be on the overtime.
You do it a different way. You wouldn't have to send an employee.
We can't send our purchase card with someone that doesn't work for the
I
county.
understand that.
Yeah, so.
I just say that we appreciate the fact that you're keeping your salaries within a reasonable level across the board. I was really surprised, but we've gone through all of them. You're the last department. Man, we've gone through all the departments in the county for the most part, and Steve, honestly, consistently with the Rec and Parks and Civic Center and Tourism, you kept it straight right down the line, which I thought was pretty phenomenal. Matter of fact, everything that you've done in this budget through every part, whether it's capital, whether it's operating, no matter what it is, it was all, I thought, very consistent, and we really appreciate that, because we know the hard work that you put in it. At the same time, you are advancing so quickly in every other department, in every other field in the county, constantly improving things and adding new programs, that it was nice to see that. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll give Katie credit. She's does the heavy lift on the budget end, and she does a phenomenal job, and our staff. But we are proud of that, and I appreciate you saying that. We're ambitious. We like to do things. We like to get things done. But we also recognize that there are a lot of priorities in the county, and there's a lot of things that need to be done outside of us. So we tried as many times as we can to come to the table with ideas, but also with solutions, whether it be funding or other types of solutions. But yeah, that means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, and your capital, look at your capital, you've got about 4 million state and federal, 3 million state, million federal. You really seem to take advantage of that, which is, we appreciate that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is council ready to move on to Civic Center?
Yes, everybody is good?
I have one question.
Shane?
I think Monica Brooks mentioned something about lights, but I think aren't playgrounds closed at dusk?
They are.
And also from one of the residents of Sharptown, they were requesting improvement in the bathrooms. And I think that's a reasonable, and maybe some of the cannabis money could do the bathrooms. That's the only request I've had from someone that lives down there or used to live down there, where the bathrooms at the park.
We can certainly get up with them.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Civic Center, most of their increases are on the utility side as well, based on current run rate and current costs associated with electric and natural gas. We do maintain a dollar amount at any point in time for fuel oil. You may or may not be aware, we maintain a generator out at the Civic Center that has the ability to be switched on. We are part of a program, it used to be called Enernoc. I don't know if it's
NLX now.
Okay, so it has changed since I was over there, but it's the same concept, I believe, where they basically could ask us in high usage time, and typically that's in the summer, that we switch over to our generator and power our building on our generator for a period of time so that the high demand, and they give us a payment every quarter for being part of that. It is rare that we get called on for that, but the fuel oil is to help replace the generator fuel. And at times we have to top it off. At times we have to, so at some point in time, we will have to end up burning that fuel oil, even though it's more expensive than, say, natural gas. You can only maintain a fuel oil. We do add additives. We do make sure that it is still eligible to be used, but there might be a period of time where we actually have to run on it. And if we have to run the Civic Center on a generator because of a natural disaster, we always budget for that as well. So the growth in their operating expenses is primarily due to utilities. The growth in their one-time operating is primarily due to IT requests for replacement of computers. In 2025, we did a large investment in restoration purchases, which is funded from the hotel motel tax and some of our fees at the Civic Center. In 2026, we're looking at doing some equipment purchases for the kitchen. But overall, their total budget is going down on the Department 61 side, or the 61 side of things, due to good management of their finances there, and less capital expenses is one of the biggest reasons for that as well. They do have a couple capital projects in their budget. The biggest one is being funded out of the bond proceeds. That facility has one elevator. If that elevator goes down, we're not ADA compliant to go on the second floor. Plus, if we need to utilize that elevator to put equipment, anything that we need to take to the second floor, we're taking away the passenger elevator. So we are looking at adding a freight elevator that could be used in a pinch if need be to take people upstairs, but it would primarily take our staff out of using the passenger elevator, right?
Yeah, so basically the elevator that we have now is graded as a passenger elevator, which is already in the process. We're in the process now of replacing that. But we put floor machines in there, we put basketball hoops in there, things we have to move to storage. It's not built for that. So what happens is they bang the back of the wall, it knocks the elevator off, they hook the door, and then the doors don't close properly. So it's not made to move equipment, it's made to move people. And so one of the things that we have looked at in order to prolong the life of the new passenger elevator, as well as make it easier, we have a storage problem there. So there's a lot of things on the third floor that have to come down to the first floor. So that's where that project's coming from. And we're trying to do it as close as possible to the passenger elevator, so we have two elevators that are going to have similar lifespans that can be used for those things.
And those are the major items associated with the Civic Center. If you have any other questions, or if I missed something, I will say, I want to say, I have to take it back to Rec and Parks. I had a note here and I totally ignored it. When I was reviewing the total numbers for leases for vehicles, I picked up the wrong number from a spreadsheet. And as such, the Civic Center would need, Rec and Parks would need an additional $27,000 to do the leases that we actually currently have in-house and for some of the replacement leases. So that is an error on my part, and so we would be requesting for an additional $27,000 for Rec and Parks. And there's not really, we don't feel there's any real places that we could cut $27,000 out of their budget to accomplish that. So I just wanted to let you know that that would be coming to the council in the final reconciliation process.
Questions from anyone? Yeah, sure.
The elevator that we're talking about, is that from a quote from a vendor, or is that a guess, or?
That's a budget estimate that's come from our service vendor, Delaware Elevator, and also through Becker Morgan, as one of the companies that's helping us work on that project.
I guess the reason for my question is the 1.1 million going to turn into 2 million once they start turning bolts and stuff like that?
Right now, with the tariffs, we're hearing a lot of things on the tariff end of it, so time will tell on the pricing, but those were given to us prior to the budget submission, and they were good numbers at that point.
Tariff emails have changed in the past 30 days.
Yeah.
So I've been getting some of those.
Right.
They're getting not so kind now. In the beginning, they were okay. Now they're not.
Jeff, you had asked me the same question about the roof, and so that opened yesterday, and we were all very happy yesterday afternoon to see that it looks like that's all going to be within budget, so.
Good, yes.
Assuming we can go with the lowest bidders, so unless there's a problem with the bidders, so
Right.
that was, hopefully the same thing will happen with the elevator, so.
I see you're getting ready to close a lane on Glen, is that right?
Yeah, temporarily during construction, Chuck, you can fill in too, but yeah, what we're trying to do is during construction, there's fencing that goes along Glen Avenue, and for people that park across the road, for them to be able to get across and then to be able to access the building without having to walk in an active lane. So we're going to create a temporary lane during construction that will have barriers so that people are behind barriers and can safely get to and from the venue. When construction opens up, obviously we would remove those, and it wouldn't stop traffic. It would just, it's a 4-lane road. Just in front of the building, that one lane would be closed off during construction, but traffic would still flow both ways.
It would just be reduced to one lane.
Correct.
Each direction.
Going east.
Oh, going east. And then this weekend is Mawa. And so that was the press release that you probably saw. We do close it in total for the number of people that will have to park across the street, especially now because they have to funnel over to the side because of the fact that we have the construction barriers up.
Mm-hmm. Cool, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did I read it correctly on the revenue side with tourism? Sometimes I don't always know how to read it.
Are we moving on to tourism?
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Well, we can finish Civic Center. I would say two things I noticed, which I thought were really great, was that your service charges were good, and your catering and concessions seemed to be, I mean, both of those are improving astronomically, which I thought was excellent.
That is another thing that will be coming forward is there certain rates that will be room rates that haven't been increased in several years for the Civic Center, and we will be requesting. So just so you're aware, very specifically, the requests that we're putting in, this budget is built with those numbers in there, both the Rec and Parks and the Civic Center. So if council makes the decision not to accept those, we will have to take a look at potential cuts to make the budget balance because those revenues are built into these budgets. So are you ready to move on to tourism?
Sure.
Okay. Tourism, primarily their salary expenses is the 5% or the 3+2. On the operating expense side, their advertising reimbursable, that number is going down because there is less grant money coming in for that program, so we will be doing less specific advertising that's reimbursable.
Yeah, that was the EDA grant that we got. That was a 3-year grant, and this year, currently fiscal year '25, was the last year of that grant. So part of the requirement is that we spend that money, so we had to have the appropriate spending authority. So now we don't have the grant for fiscal year '26, so the spending authority is not there either. We don't need it, we wouldn't be spending it.
So total operating expenses is actually going down, and that's primarily due to the fact that the advertising cost will be going down. Transfer to capital projects is going up, so we utilize fund balance at the tourism's, again, tourism is 100% funded by either their events that they run or hotel motel tax. And so they build up fund balance, and we utilize that fund balance to help do capital projects within typically the Civic Center and Rec and Parks that then benefit tourism-type activities. So we're budgeting $740,000 of that, and most of that is going to, I believe, Mason-Dixon and the Winter Place Lighting Project and some Pemberton Park projects, signage as well.
Interpretive signage there.
So that's what the $740,000 is for. It's for specific projects that are tourism-related, and thus it is coming from revenue that the county has collected, but it's not coming from taxpayer revenue. It's coming from those visitors who are coming to the county to utilize these facilities. And then I don't know exactly what, you have, there are 2 use of prior year fund balances in the revenue side of things. Those are just the regular fund balance that they have, and most of the 787 is the capital project transfer that we just talked about. And then the $23,000 use of prior year is a utilization of fund balance that has been created by the collecting of fees for the MASA, which is the agreement between Ocean City, Worcester County, and Wicomico County. We have to basically, per our agreement with those 3, with us as 3 entities, we are supposed to spend all of those funds on MASA-related activities, and as such, in years past, we have actually made some money and we reconcile to our partners to show them where we've spent all of the funds, and so we are appropriating some of those excess funds. It is not intended to be a moneymaker. It is supposed to break even over the length of the contracts.
With that 787-350, it's not really, how come that isn't something that we didn't see under the proposed capital budget, as an item listed under the proposed?
So the 787 is actually use of prior year fund balance. It wouldn't be in the capital budget, but if you look at the capital budget, there's 3 line items under enterprise fund that add up to most of what that is.
Okay.
So there's $720,000 right on there by itself. The other $20,000 is tourism-related projects itself at, I believe
At the Welcome Center.
At the Welcome Center.
General upkeep there. So basically, that portion that we're going to do in less than a year, which would be, let's see, I've got some parking lot upkeep, new garbage cans, and some repairs to the decking. That would all be coming from that prior year fund balance, but that'll all be spent within a year. That's not a long-term project. It's just general upkeep.
You had in here one item, printing of the visitor's guide went from 28,000 to 7,000. The only reason I had to bring that up is I was wondering if you went to Minuteman Press or not. I didn't.
I can answer that. No, we didn't do that one.
You don't have to answer that.
We're actually moving towards more of a digital model for that as well. So there are some costs still with that. We're looking at more of like maybe a flyer type of thing that would be available in the visitor center instead of the thick books that we were doing before.
Yeah. Jeff?
So all 3 of these have one-time operating expenses, and they're kind of all over. One dropped 14,000, the other one increased. What's an example of a one-time operating expense?
I mean, it's basically either capital equipment, capital repairs, so it just depends. We look at the fund balance, we look at what we're trying to accomplish, we look at match for grants, and then we kind of, each year we'll decide, we look at our fund balances, what we have available, do we want to spend it on this project? So it's just ebb and flow of the projects, what we need for that, and what we're deciding to do. So,
It's not a huge amount of money, but it's just, between tourism and rec and parks, it's one's way up, one's way down.
I know the tourism, we had a $10,000 one-time expense in there last year that went down. That was for a grant, so we didn't end up getting that grant, so we didn't spend that money. So it's usually things like that, projects that we're considering or trying to do.
Yeah, it's typically, unlike utilities, which happen every year, it's a one-time grant that we may have to do a match for, or we feel that if we do a small purchase of trash cans for a place, that's one time. It's not happening every year that we're doing that, or it's that kind of thing, so it fluctuates year over year, but doesn't qualify big enough to be considered a capital expenditure because it doesn't meet our threshold of capital expenditure in some of those instances.
We're good.
We appreciate you again taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent.
So corrections is next, if I may have 2 minutes?
Yes, sure.
I'll be right
We're
back.
going to take a 10-minute recess. All right. Next item on the agenda is corrections. And if you could-
Pam Oland again.
Hi, Pam. Charles Schmenkel.
Chris Tyler.
Kimball. Mike Jamison.
So in that cross-training realm, Charles is going to take it away at the moment.
So, looking at the salary change requests, last year the council cut several positions that hadn't been filled for a while. A couple of those positions were the community correctional officers, and so we're asking for 2 of those positions to be reinstated. They were vacant because of COVID. Right now, they have a couple of correctional officers doing those duties, and they'd like to move those correctional officers back into the cells and have these 2 positions that reactivated to handle the community correctional officer job. So that's the request there on the salary changes.
What's the job description of that?
So community corrections officers deal with nothing but pretrial individuals who are out in the community. They are not incarcerated with us. Right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 correctional officers out there doing that job, and we would like to get them back into the jail to help cover some of the vacancies that we have. So by having two of the community corrections, which is also be at lower pay, help out.
As far as...
I'm sorry. Are you still doing salaries?
Yeah, I was going to continue on the salaries, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
What is, I'm sorry, I lost my page that quick. Go ahead, I'll find it. I lost my page, go ahead.
As far as the salaries, like most of the county departments, we are looking at a 3% COLA and then a 2% shift.
Well, they're actually doing we're moving their scale, but we're also giving them a step. Their steps may not be 2% between the steps. So because there is a specific correctional scale, which got implemented with the Bolton study, they would get a step in January, which may or may not be 2%. So their scale went up 3%, but their step in January is not it is not a straight 2%. It is due to them moving on the scale.
And it's usually more?
I would have to calculate. I did not look at that off the top of my head. So, but you have in here the scale that is going to. So if somebody is currently at a step 3, in January, they would move to a step 4.
Yeah, I don't always understand all the steps a lot. I look at the numbers in here, and within all the departments, and I think corrections is honestly do a lot more. I really do. I'll say that first. But then I have to ask, how come we see so many 8% in corrections? Is that due to this step issue?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Yes. So this, again, they're not a clean, the 3+2 that has been discussed is those that are on the regular salary scale, not on the correctional scale or the FOP scale.
I have a question. What is a super classification? They're getting a 17% increase.
Can you give me a page number, please?
No. Yeah, 5 on the paper I got.
It's a supervisor, it's a lieutenant within their scale. So it is a green, and that is due to the person was not at the right spot on the scale based on their years of service. We went back and looked at that specific person and in filling that spot.
Okay.
So,
I see the LAU now. I know what that means now, Lieutenant.
so
Okay.
it is somebody who has been, who was not appropriately placed on the scale based on years of service.
So what do you do about that when you go to somebody and say, hey, we've hit you the wrong place on the scale, so we're going to give you a 17% increase? Do you go back and look at the years prior and say, hey, we had you on the wrong place on the scale for the past 5 years?
Not in this instance.
Does that
In this instance, we are looking at it just being a going forward because we looked at that specific position for that specific person. Again, they were placed on the scale, and they were placed on the scale, but we did a further evaluation based on further information, and we feel in '26 they should be increased.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions on the salaries before we move on?
Jeff, do you have any questions? No.
So, on the operations side of things, of course, maintenance is increasing. Utilities tends to increase. The ESG lease dropped off. But I think you will find that through most of their shifting, the major increase is due mostly to the cost of food going up and especially the cost of medical going up for the prisoners.
And that is, those are I don't think it's totally state mandated that they get fed, but they need to be fed. And then, but the medical side of things is state mandates, and additional requirements keep coming down every year. Kind of like the sheriff's office talked about unfunded mandates. These are unfunded mandates where we have a correctional facility. We are required to maintain a standard of care for the inmates that are the population that we have, and as such, we have to pay outside services to cover those costs.
The cost of home detentions, we're projecting that to decrease further, or at least we're truing that up with current experience. And then, of course, there's some changes. Computer equipment, those costs are going down from the current year, as is other capital. And then we do have a couple of items there that we're trying to put on the capital budget.
And those are all things that I believe did not change from when we originally submitted. We're looking at doing the final year of some flooring upgrades, doing a fence and courtyard, adjusting the chilled water pumps, and I spelled pumps wrong. I apologize. It says pumps, so it doesn't need that T in there. You run spell check and it still doesn't catch everything. There must be a word somewhere that has a T in there. Sorry. And as I said at the very beginning of this stuff, mistakes happen. And so it's basically $1.2 million worth of pay-go that we're looking for correctional facility. And it's to prep us for some future, council did sign in a statement that we would be willing to match if we get state grants, but those state grants wouldn't be coming until mostly '27 and after.
I know earlier today, the sheriff's office was in and you made a comment about what we were going to do with the old sheriff's department, and it's next to corrections. Has there been any conversations about the usage of that building as far as what you would need it for corrections?
Yes, sir, we have been in conversations with the county exec and the, Mr. Luffman.
So there's a possibility that that's
Yes.
where that building will be utilized for? Okay.
Yes.
sir.
Right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Some of the things I believe we're looking at are the things that don't need to have fencing, all the way across to the other, that we could have, maybe some of this community correction stuff, but those are all things that we're looking at.
Okay, yeah, we're fine.
I see a number of a correctional officer one, looks like they're in here as 22.5 and they're going to 46,350. Were they just placeholders or?
No, so we should have, 2020-09 requires us to put in here the amount we're going to pay somebody. Last year, council and the executive made the decision to do some kind of attrition factor for the correction office because they don't have full employment all year. The way we presented that last year, we presented that as a partial number on the Exhibit F, where we should have showed it as a full number on Exhibit F and only put a partial number in the actual funding for Munis, because I'm not hiring somebody at $22,000, I'm hiring somebody at $43,000, but we might only be funding it for half a year. So those changes, why those changes look like, last year we funded some of those positions at 50%. We still have an attrition factor, and I believe I described that in some of the previous document. We still have an attrition factor, but we are showing it in a different way this year because we really should be showing the full dollar amount that I'm paying the person, because I'm not we might only pay $22,000 out in the year, but their salary is $43,000. So that's the difference.
What is the difference between overtime and premium overtime?
I think Charles should answer that since he's, or Chris.
I'll have to get back to you.
Chris defers
All
to
right,
Charles.
Pam, it's all yours.
So overtime and premium overtime, it is time of day, whether or not they're working a holiday, whether or not they've gone over a certain number of hours. So you can have straight overtime, you can have double overtime. It really is it's a technical difference, but it is a classification in our system, so we do budget them separately.
Thank you.
Yes.
We saw electric and natural gas. Everybody's got that. It's incredible. First thing you see. You know what never ceases to me? I think everything is very consistent. You're operational, Chris. It looks really good. What never ceases to amaze me is the hospital cost. The hospital is. Public should know it's consistently probably 20%, if I'm not mistaken, of your entire budget. Yeah. So, everybody thinks of it as a correctional facility, but my God, when you're putting 20% in hospital, it certainly puts a different perspective on it.
And it's not just hospital stays, it is actual medical treatment, medical stuff that's being done in the facility.
Yeah. So
how many positions are you down about now?
As of 5/15, we calculate 28, but we also have 3 days of interviews next week, so 10 out of those 3 days too.
So it's slowly moving in the right direction, right? Because it was between 30 and 40.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You're recruiting, right?
Yes, sir.
As much as possible.
We are everywhere in the community.
I've seen you.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question. The food service, you have a vendor that does that,
Yes, ma'am.
and it's $990,000.
Yes, ma'am.
What do they give you?
3 meals a day.
I mean, what type of meals, I should say? What type of meals do they get for that?
They're not getting fried chicken.
I know they're not getting steak and things like that.
No.
But for $990 million, $990,000, what type of food do they get?
The menu varies, so it could be rice and beans or chicken patties. You have breakfast meals with cereal or pancakes or oatmeal. They have to meet the 3,000 calorie limit, and all the menus are approved by the
Peanut butter and
dietitian.
jelly sandwiches?
Upon occasion, but not very often.
Okay. And when someone wants to purchase a T-shirt or...
It's commissary, yes, ma'am.
That's commissary. And a family member can't send them a T-shirt, they have to get it from the commissary?
That's correct.
Why is that?
One is typically cheaper, but two, we have to monitor everything that comes into the facility, and we do not permit packages from family members.
Because it seemed like it would be cheaper for a family member to send a T-shirt than buying it from commissary.
The risk of somebody trying to send something other than a T-shirt in is greater than the savings.
Yeah, and also, question, inmate programs and services. The programs, is that something like the reentry program?
Reentry, we have GED, we have
Okay.
sexual health and recovery, we have many programs.
Okay, all right. That's all.
This is a little bit off the beaten track, but not completely. The health, I don't know what you even want to call it, where employees, county employees can go and get health care.
The health center?
Health center, yeah.
The health center that we have with...
Is that being utilized correct, up to potential, or?
It has been slow to catch on. I would have thought more employees would be interested in utilizing something that does not require a copay than what is. It is growing, but it is not growing at the pace that I would have thought. We will have to, I think we need another year, and we are continually doing outreach to all of our employees, biweekly, monthly.
So do we have a maximum amount of employees that can attend that without the price going up?
Every employee could use it at the rate that we're being charged right now.
I'm saying, but if our employees, if not all our employees are using it, we're not taking full advantage of it, correct? Like we
Correct.
should. Could they send inmates?
No,
Why?
because,
We're paying for it.
well, but because there is the security concerns and,
It's no different than a hospital. I mean, they have to send a corrections officer with them at the hospital. I mean,
it would, we could look into that. I don't think our contract could be.
I don't think so either, but, I was real reluctant on that thing. I didn't think, most people want to see their family doctor, and
Well, but that's
why-
not really where I'm hoping people change their behavior. Honestly, we have people who can get in same day, like you go to a Your Doc's In, and there's no copay for an employee to go there versus a Your Doc's In is a $35, I think, dollar copay. They have plenty of available appointments. It's just trying to change the mindset that Your Doc's In or the other immediate cares that we have are more advantageous versus if you call them up today, you can get, in most instances, an appointment today, either later in the day or first thing in the morning with what we have and then not pay a copay. I would have thought that would have been more attractive, but I can't,
Yeah, I'm sorry, we got off track from the corrections, but anyway, is that for their family members also?
Yep.
So, okay.
we pay it's called per member per month, and it's based on the membership that we have with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So if you are not taking availability of our health insurance, you may not use it. But if you are using our health insurance and paying for our health insurance, you have the availability, and every member of your household that is part of our health insurance can use it. So if you have a spouse or a child on it,
It's been about 2 years now, right? Since-
no, we just, we're in the first year.
Is it the first year? Okay.
Yeah, I think we opened in like September 30th, so we're not even a full year in. So we are growing, just not growing as quickly as I would like.
Now, that's open to Board of Ed too, right?
The Board of Ed actually started it. We are contracted as a second party in the same facility with the Board of Ed, because we did not come in at the ground floor. We came in kind of half a step up.
I know you all deal with a significant number of mental health issues over there. Do we have someone on staff over there, a mental health provider, or is that contracted out, or how does
We have
that?
mental health on site 7 days a week during day shift, and then we have a telehealth. So if somebody comes in who is suicidal and the commissioner's letting them go, we can do telehealth with them before they go out. And if they need to be EP'd, we call the sheriff's department and they'll take them to the hospital.
You seeing more of that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. If you want a little bit of stats, right now we have 22 orders for people to go to MDH, and they're not within the court order of the 10 days. A couple of them have been up there up to 6 months waiting before they get transferred to the mental health facility.
Roughly how many inmates do you have?
260 today,
And we have a capacity of what,
500,
500?
a little over 500.
Okay. Wow.
Inmates are sicker than they used to be.
Require more care than they used to.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the work you all do.
Would it make sense to have like a doctor on staff or something along that?
I mean, so if we contract it, they're required to make sure that vacations are covered, every shift is covered, somebody who is sick is covered, versus if we hire one doctor, then we still will have to have a contract to backfill. One doctor's not going to be able to cover 7 days a week during the daytime. So.
Bad idea.
So, yes, we're paying an outside firm to do it, but it means that we don't have to make sure every shift is covered. They do. That's in their contract.
Yes, Lord.
So there are a couple of positions that you have listed that are not part of the corrections salary pay grade or steps. They're actually like the M31s or M32.
Okay.
And they're not getting the 5%.
Because if they're kind of in that orangey color, it's because they've maxed out on the scale.
Oh. Have maxed out.
And so some of them might already be above the scale, so they don't even get the 3% because they are currently above the scale. And so the decision was made that we are attempting to operate a scale-based wage system, and as such, some of these positions are above the scale.
So what happens if council decides to bump that scale up? Would they still max out in fiscal year '26? I mean, I know you're saying that they would max out now, but if that scale got bumped up, that 2%.
So if council made the decision that the scale was going up 5%, we'd have to look at each individual person versus having people move to the right on the scale. So,
aren't you just saying 2%? Is that what the recommendation is, though, to bump it up 2%?
No, it's...
It's 3% COLA and then 2% bump up on the scale.
No, it's 3% COLA, the scale moves, and then they move to the right on the scale. So they are above where a 3% scale increase happened, and they are off the scale on to the right.
Even the M31s and M32s?
Anybody who is in that orangey color has gone beyond the scale. So you've got a department assistant who is an M32, who is currently making $50,819. An M32 maxes out at $49,007. So they are above the scale in total, even with a 3% increase in the scale.
Okay.
That's what that orange color means. So some people might be getting 2% because they are just below the max number. Some might be getting 1%, some might be getting 0, but those are the ones that are in that orange color are because they are maxing. If you look at them, they are either at or above the scale.
I don't understand how they can max out. I mean, when the scale is based on longevity, you know, I mean, the goal is to keep people.
Well, but the thing is that we have created a maximum amount for the scale, for a grade. So if council wants to say that there's no maximum for a scale, for a job, that's possible, but what that does is it says that you can have somebody who has a lot of years who earns more than a position that requires more schooling, because you just let them keep building above a scale for a job. Again, there is no perfect salary management system. This is the one that we have currently.
That's no different than the sheriff's department, where their command staff earns more than the sheriff, or the county executive is earning more than, some of her staff's earning more than she is, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a finite end. We have never taken somebody back. So again, if somebody has been earning more than the scale, and most of these people have been earning more than the scale since we implemented these scales back with Bolton 3 or 4 years ago, we've never taken them back and said, you're getting a salary cut to take them on, to put them on the scale, but they may or may not have been getting the raises.
How many people does that impact?
I would have to go through and count.
20, 10?
It's in here in those that are in the orange.
And without looking at it, it seems, I think, that it could be considered to be a bit unfair if someone is just stagnant.
Again,
No
it
matter
is.
where they are in the system, just making someone stagnant I don't think that's a really good plan.
It's a lower level employee. I mean, you're talking about an M31 and M32, so I would agree, it definitely doesn't seem fair.
So I would like to think maybe there's some way we can work into some type of a waiver or a reconsideration on that one.
But we also have an M38 who is maxed out. So, it is not limited to the lower ends. We have implemented a scale system and said that this is the maximum for that. Again, we have never cut anybody, but we have not increased them.
At some point,
If I could, real quick, so you guys, because this is sort of housekeeping we're trying to work on, I don't want to hold you up. So did you have any other comments that you wanted to make or any questions that you had? All right, well, we appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for taking the time, and we appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you all.
Thank you.
and at some point, if you take a private firm, go take Walmart or somewhere like that, people do max out. And they can't, if they stay there 15 or 20 years, they're maxed out on their salary,
Federal government's the same way.
Yeah.
We did go to Bolton to get experts to advise this because, there are all sorts of inequities in trying to implement the salary. So at least we're trying to make it standardized, and we're trying to bring in an independent party to give us kind of that advice. Are there things that we can consider?
Right?
Pardon me?
They're still getting 2%.
No. If
Or is that just going to the lot, right?
Frozen out.
So some of them are getting, again, if you look at those in orange, some are getting 0, some are getting 2%, some are getting, somebody in here is getting 1% because somebody is, so you will see one in here that's actually saying that they're getting 5%, but that's actually, if you actually calculate it to the percentage, they're not getting quite 5% because they've maxed out at 4.75%, but I'm not giving you that level of digits. But I wanted to, so I highlighted that person because if you actually do 5% on their salary, they're not quite getting 5%, they're getting 4 point something. And so the rounding has them at 5%, but their actual calculation isn't quite 5%. So I was being transparent and saying they have maxed on the scale.
Yeah, well, that's great. I just think what Ms. Hurley says, and it could be a valid point, is like, some of some of where we looked at the cuts last year was above a certain pay scale. We said, well, we won't, we don't want to hurt the people below this particular pay scale. And I think we should look at that possibly for this maxing out, that, if you're at a level of 40,000 a year or something to that effect, there may be considered a waiver on that, because it's not going to be a huge impact on the county, and it also, might be fair for those individuals.
That is something that we can discuss, but I would recommend that we look at making sure those bottom ends of the scale reflect that on the scale spreadsheet.
Could you do a one-time bonus?
So that is what we do for the longevity with the FOP, is that, because again, those who have hit the end of the scale, their contract basically says that if you've been at a step 18 for 2 to 5 years, you get X dollars, but it doesn't go into your pension. It is considered a one-time bonus.
Right.
That is a possibility that we could consider. We could craft it such that it is a one-time bonus and it's not part of their pension, because again, anything that you put in that you say is their full-time salary and paid on, it becomes a pension aspect.
So then we'll end up in an argument like we are with the fire departments. Well, it should be.
So again, it is as clean as we can make it when we have versus to have a salary scale, we're attempting to put everybody on that scale versus just saying we're hiring a correctional officer at, this correctional officer is at $50,000, this correctional officer is at $45,000, this correctional officer is at $60,000. We have a scale, we have longevity, we have, and we're trying to put some parameters for fair treatment within a set of jobs.
Yeah, I get it. I just don't know if you could say, okay, well, if you're 3 times below, government loves to talk about the poverty level. So whether it's 3 times above or 3 times below the poverty level, that would be where you could draw a line to create some type of a waiver or an exception to that, strictly based on what their total salary is on an annual basis.
And,
you could talk about wage compression, but I think it's going to be so minuscule, I don't think it's going to create a real, I don't know, but it would be interesting to know if it really created a big problem with all the employees. Anyway, not to belabor it. We appreciate your explanation on that.
Yep.
Any other questions right now?
I don't get it.
Pam, there's one position in here, 100413, it's correctional officer 1. It's in at 59,207, but they're going down to 46,350.
It's probably
Was that
because,
somebody that resigned at the?
yeah, the position has become
Just bringing
vacant.
it back to the pay
Yes.
level? Yeah.
So in most instances, I couldn't tell you for sure, but in most instances, if you have a position that's going from a higher number to a lower number, it's because the position has become vacant from somebody who had more seniority,
You're bringing it down to the,
to what we would hire them at.
right, yeah, okay, thank you.
Entertain motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.